WREZ 914. Mark, are you with us?
WREZ 914, this is Mark. Yeah, I'll be on for both nets tonight. So the first question I always get is, what kind of radio are you running for a base station? I've got a Kenwood radio here that I bought through a dealer online. And it was pretty cheap since it was a used radio. I've got it hooked up to my power supply, and I've got a speaker run so I can hear the audio very good and clear. So what I've done to help out my radio, as you can see in the back, I've got a fan blowing across the radio to keep it cool while transmitting. I've got my grounding wire strapped onto the radio, and as well as strapped onto the power supply. And that runs out with the coax to the outside where it terminates into the ground. What I've also done is I went ahead and bought a small little audio amplifier that I've plugged into the output of the radio, so I can amplify the audio to come through the big speakers. This one, and I've got one in the garage. So the second question I get asked a lot is, what do you have for a base station antenna? Well, there it is. You can see it. It's a 10.5 foot, 9 dB gain Comet antenna. I've got it attached directly onto a pole that's also 10 feet, so the whole assembly is 20 feet from the base of the pole up. The base of the pole is mounted to my chimney. I used a few pieces of unistrut and some drop-in anchors to permanently attach it to the side of the chimney. There's about a 4-foot gap between the two pieces of unistrut. And then I've got LMR 400 cabling running through the center of the pole and then down onto the house, which runs inside. It's a pretty straight shot for me. It's about 35 feet of coax that I had to run. Also on there, if you can see very good, I've got a grounding cable that's also running down from the unistrut. So the cable runs down towards the base of the house, down on the ground, and it turns at the bottom and comes into the house right there. All right, here's a look at the antenna packaging from that antenna that you saw up on the roof. So as you can see, where I live in a suburb of Northwest Houston, we are surrounded by a lot of trees. These trees like to hold moisture, which tends to absorb our signal. So trying to get the antenna up high as possible definitely benefits my ability to reach out, and having to run a little higher wattage on the radio pushes the power out past the trees. Usually I run between 20 and 40 watts, depending on how far away the repeaters are. Again, grounding is very important. Right now you can hear the thunder in the background. This is a pretty common occurrence down here in Houston and other parts of the country. So you definitely want to make sure that your antenna is grounded well and you follow all the National Electric Code current edition recommendations for grounding your antenna. So a little more information about grounding here. So as you can see, the LMR coax, the LMR 400 coax is coming down off the antenna. Right here at the base of the house where it enters into the house, there is a surge arrestor on the outside. The surge arrestor is a gas tube type surge arrestor. They're pretty cheap. Connected to the surge arrestor is the grounding wire. This is a bare copper 6-gauge wire. I've painted it for aesthetics purposes, which that's fine. And it runs down to the grounding rod with the appropriate connector for the rod. You don't want to use any kind of non-rated connector such as a radiator clamp or something like that. You actually want to go to the store and buy a solid piece of copper grounding connector for the rod. Also, what you're seeing down there is a grounding block. That grounding block has another grounding cable that connects into the radio. And the other little wire that you're seeing run is a speaker that is out in my garage. I was able to reuse the hole and run it out there. So this grounding definitely prevents near lightning strike sparks that can enter the radio and cause damage to the internal components. Unfortunately, with the direct lightning strike, though, you're probably going to end up losing the antenna and the radio. But however, with all the grounding, you're hoping to prevent a fire from occurring because of bad grounding. So from here, I've ran a grounding wire kind of back up the wall, or you could run it down in the ground. It travels, this is 6-gauge bare copper wire. It's pretty stout stuff. It travels across the chimney line. You can see it up there. And it runs up underneath the eave of the house. You can see it trailing across the house here. And then right back to where the main service entrance is for the electricity, and it travels back down to the master grounding rod, again using the appropriate rated clamps. This is grounding and bonding, so everything is grounded together and bonded appropriately, and everything's tied back together. That way, if you have a lightning or surge spike, then everything immediately becomes the same potential throughout the house, and you don't have a difference of potential. So one thing I did, I wanted to hear the audio of the GMRS radio in my garage. So I ran a speaker with a wire out from the radio around the house and into the garage. As you can see, I mounted the speaker up on the wall, which provides pretty good audio in the garage. So if I'm out working in the garage, I can hear if I'm being called, or I can hear any general traffic that's being put out on the radio. Like tonight, I'm listening to the regional and national net through the in the garage. So if you noticed through my video tonight, there was a lot of radio traffic. That's because they were holding the regional GMRS net. That net meets every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central. After the Sunday night regional net, they have the national net, which starts at 7 p.m. You can find more information about the linked repeaters that uses the net and the national and regional nets that they host every Sunday night. Go to mygmrs.com/nets for more information. All right, well, there you have it. There's my home base setup. If you're in Houston, or if you're on the Link network, you can probably catch me on the radio. This is WREZ 914, Mark in Houston, saying have a good day.